I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews with Brendon Sedo, one of the initial contributors to the Core DAO and Core Chain. Brendon, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Hey Ashton, thanks for setting this up and excited to talk Bitcoin and core today.
Definitely, there's been a lot of updates to the Bitcoin ecosystem, more than just a store of value that people are holding Bitcoin. The utility and potential interaction with other parts of blockchain that Bitcoin is sort of diving into over this year, I feel like is very beneficial that core is continuing to grow and being able to bring more utility to Bitcoin. And I think more people are waking up to the fact that there's a lot of things that you can do with Bitcoin besides store it for the next 100 years. So I'm excited to dive into our discussions today. I'd love to start with a little bit on your background and how you got involved with Core, and then we can dive into everything on what Core is about.
Sure, I'll keep that pretty short so we can talk about the juicier stuff related to core and Bitcoin. But yeah, quick background on myself. I've been in tech about 15 years at this point. I was the founder and CEO of a tech startup called Joist. It was basically what the kids would now call a Web 2 company. So it was SaaS in the construction industry. So raised VC funding, scaled that up to one of the largest contractor platforms in the world, and with payments and financial products, and then eventually sold it a couple of years ago now. And then so I'd always been interested in crypto. As a technologist, folks have been talking about it since, the early 2010s. And so we're always aware. There's always just like an interest and something I dabble in. And then, after I got out of my last company, after kind of transitioning, started to just get a lot deeper into what you could actually do and got fascinated, started thinking about a few ideas as well. And then actually reconnected with some folks I knew that were working on the core project
Mm-hmm.
from my previous tech experience, and heard more as the more I heard about the mission and saw the community that was built up here, got just super excited, and now have been part of the core project, contributing for over 2 years now before we launched. So it's been a really exciting run. But that's a bit about how I got involved, and a bit about myself personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing when you have a interest in hobby in something, and then you're able to actually transition into that full time, and then you love what you do. So that that's the beauty of it. And how can you not love working on the next financial system with Bitcoin? I'm personally very excited about it as well. And you mentioned there, the mission got you interested in Core. Can you talk about that? I think a lot of people have seen Core around on social, but they're like, okay, well, what exactly is it doing with relation to Bitcoin? What is Core?
Yeah, I'll jump into that. And a lot of that resonated. So again, what resonated with me is as someone who'd been involved in Bitcoin for a long time, obviously you want to hold it, you don't want to let your Bitcoin go, but I wanted to do things with Bitcoin. I actually was probably one of the first folks to wrap it, bring it into the ecosystem, borrow, and I actually bought some real estate with based on some collateralized loans because it didn't want to sell Bitcoin. So you know Core's mission, we'll jump into what Core is, but the overall mission is to unlock utility for Bitcoin, right? So you can think of it as you have I don't know. I actually haven't checked the crypto prices in a couple of days, but let's call it 1.5 trillion in market cap that's historically kind of sat, right, and been stored. And I'm talking about the Bitcoin market cap. So what we want to do is unlock that liquidity and latent demand to do things, whether it's deployed into DeFi applications, earn staking yields, and actually put your Bitcoin to work as an asset. So what is Core? Core is a layer one blockchain that's fully EVM compatible, that is secured by Bitcoin. So specifically, we're going to jump into these, I think, in detail, but it's secured by miners and pools who delegate hash. They do the hard work in the Bitcoin network and help secure core chain with hash rate. And then secondly, we've got this really interesting native Bitcoin staking functions. So as a Bitcoin holder, you can actually stake Bitcoin to help secure the core blockchain without giving up custody, doing so on the Bitcoin L1 itself, which brings native yield to Bitcoin for the first time. So that is the high level of what we do. And you could think of it as like, Bitcoin's extremely decentralized and secure, does a lot of things great, but it has no native smart contracts, no native staking yield, right? Or ability to put your Bitcoin to work. You can think of Core as this scaling chain that enables a lot of these use cases that you've seen in EVM ecosystems, without giving up the decentralization and security of Bitcoin.
That's a great starting point. I want to dive into that a little bit more for clarification. So you mentioned there it's EVM compatible. You mentioned Core is a layer 1. You mentioned that the Bitcoin doesn't actually have to leave the Bitcoin blockchain as well. So could you walk through an example of, say I want to stake my Bitcoin or bring extra utility to the Bitcoin. You transfer that to an EVM chain or to the Core chain, and how does that work where it's not leaving the Bitcoin blockchain, but you're able to actually stake it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So those are really a few things. So if I take a step back, if you're a Bitcoin holder, there's a variety of things, that Core envisions you'll be able to do with Bitcoin. It's really going to come down to your risk appetite and what trust assumptions you're willing to take on. So the thinking was, with staking, right? Let's just start there. Staking is just part of Core's consensus and was thought about from the beginning to align with Bitcoiners and bring Bitcoiners into the Core blockchain, right? So how that works is it's completely non-custodial and happens entirely on the Bitcoin network. So what you do is you issue, let's say you have a Bitcoin wallet, right? You would visit our staking website, connect your Bitcoin wallet, and you issue a time lock to yourself, right? So you're issuing a Bitcoin transaction in your wallet, specifying the length of how long you'd like to stake, which is how long you're going to time lock your Bitcoin. And so let's say 30 days. So you issue this time lock to yourself. And there's also some additional data in which you specify which validator you'd like to stake to and delegate your Bitcoin to, and an EVM address to earn block rewards. Boom, you issue the Bitcoin transaction. And what's great is you haven't given up custody. You haven't wrapped or bridged your assets. You haven't put it in quote unquote a smart contract. It's simply time locked in your own wallet. But you cannot spend it, right, until the time lock expires. You can't move it. There's no way, and it's completely immutable. So you've given up the ability to use that asset, but you have the peace of mind of knowing that it's still in your custody in your wallet. And so you're locking up Bitcoin to secure the Core blockchain. And we basically rank validators and choose the validator set each day based on how much Bitcoin has been delegated to them, right? So you're directly contributing to the security of the network and helping validators get elected. So that's where you see this risk-free yield or a bond rate yield that you've seen in Ethereum, for example, where you simply stake and, right now you earn 3 to 4%, right? And that's completely no risk within your custody. From there, there's multiple other things you can do. You can bridge Bitcoin onto the Core blockchain. We've seen, at this point, there's over 450 million in TVL that's been brought on chain, and we expect a lot more based on the market cap of Bitcoin. But, you can wrap into some sort of asset like a wrapped Bitcoin, solve Bitcoin, TBTC. There's a variety of these assets and actually deploy into on-chain strategies. And you can likely earn additional yields, but you're taking on different risk assumptions. So it really depends on your appetite. And, the way Core thinks about it is, as technology improves and there's more utility for Bitcoin, more will come on chain, and a lot will go to staking because there's just a lot of latent Bitcoin sitting around that would love to earn yield. So kind of see it as a variety of options along the risk curve for Bitcoin holders to put their Bitcoin to work over time.
That's really interesting, and I feel like people, they want to get some kind of yield, and they also want to maintain that immutability, decentralization of their Bitcoin. I think hopefully the days are past where people see some kind of yield platform, they send their Bitcoin to another company, and then all of a sudden there's a lawsuit and their Bitcoin's gone, right? That's not possible
Yeah.
in this sense when you're locking it in your own wallet.
Yeah, it's a very different approach. And this team, the core team, are very early Bitcoiners. They align with Bitcoin, they understand the value, and they're big believers of Bitcoin. The mission here is to extend its utility and what can be done with Bitcoin without completely changing the fundamentals of what Bitcoin is.
Hmm.
So it's very important that there was a non-custodial approach without slashing risk for large institutions or folks with a lot of Bitcoin. It was very much designed with Bitcoiners in mind, to give them the simplest and most trustful method to earn yield on Bitcoin for the first time ever without giving up custody of your actual Bitcoin.
Hmm. And a lot of people understand Bitcoin mining as sort of the decentralized way that maintains the integrity of the Bitcoin network. But now, when you have the core blockchain and you're staking, is that more of a proof of stake consensus mechanism, and that's verifying the security of the core chain? And maybe you can talk a little bit about the consensus and how that secures the chain.
Yeah, so this is great. We call this we call this consensus. It's Satoshi plus consensus, and the way to think of it is it's actually a hybrid proof of work, like delegated proof of work and proof of stake chain.
Hmm.
So I didn't go into the whole specifics initially because it's a lot, but I will now, right? So you could think of it as there's a validator set on Core that are going to validate blocks and ensure the integrity of the chain. They're elected each day based on how much hash rate has been delegated to their validator, how much Bitcoin has been delegated to the validator, which we just discussed how that works, and lastly, how much Core has been staked. And there's this hybrid score that looks at how much of each of those three very difficult things to attain have been delegated or staked to your validator. And basically, they're stack ranked each day, and that's how the validator set is chosen. And they're elected basically every single day based on this hybrid score. So the way to think of it is, you've got the delegated proof of stake from both Bitcoin and folks that are staking the core token, which is the native token of the core blockchain. And then you've got large mining pools that are delegating hash rate. So you can think of it as like, they're responsible or they manage, I'm just going to use simple terms, like 5 exahashes of hash that they produced on Bitcoin that actually produced Bitcoin blocks. They can use those 5 exahashes and delegate them to validators on Core to help secure the chain and vote for a validator, right? It's like, hey, we think the X, I'm not going to name one for preferences, but we think the ABC validator, they're great stewards of the Core blockchain. They're good actors. We're going to put our exahash there. And for helping secure the chain, again, they're earning block rewards, which is another, emission for miners who are really the backbone of the Bitcoin network, which again is really important for Bitcoin alignment and a Bitcoin scaling chain. So as opposed to extracting from miners, you're actually helping miners
Hmm.
and giving them another emission.
Okay. Yeah, I want to dive into that a little bit more. So the Bitcoiners themselves, they're able to earn value, or they can contribute to the core chain, and they can also earn value. And are the core contributors of Core, are they actually helping on the Bitcoin mining side, securing the Bitcoin chain?
Yeah, great question. So to be clear, Core doesn't run miners. There's no mining operational. That would be really cool. Maybe buy some land in Texas or something. But there's a lot of there are decentralized miners everywhere in the world generally. And
Hmm.
that's the beauty of Bitcoin. Some of them just do it because they really believe in Bitcoin and they're not this large public company. I think that's what makes Bitcoin amazing. So you can think of it as like they're participating in pools who then, produce blocks on Bitcoin and help secure the Bitcoin blockchain. When they're producing blocks, again, they can add some extra data uh, as they're producing Bitcoin blocks, redelegate that hash to Core, and earn Core block rewards for helping secure the Core
Hmm.
chain. So it's directly aligned with Bitcoin miners who are supporting the network. So again, you've got Bitcoin holders who are aligned with Core chain, Now it's also secured by Bitcoin mining pools, which, by the way, 55% of all of Bitcoin's hash is already participating in Core. So you've got this major alignment with the existing Bitcoin network as opposed to extracting value from miners, right? You're actually
Mm-hmm.
giving them additional yield and emissions, which is very important for miners, especially such as this year when you're coming after a halving, right? And
Hmm.
their block rewards have been cut in half.
Definitely. No, that's a great point in the miners looking to uh, contribute to the blockchain ecosystem as a whole, and also keep up when the mining rewards are halved. And I'm curious about 2024 because a lot has happened since January. You know, the Bitcoin ETF starting out the year, and then the halving event for the miners, and just overall a lot of capital flowing into the Bitcoin ETF, which is different than holding your Bitcoin in your wallet and being able to time lock it. But the interest in
Yeah.
Bitcoin has significantly grown uh, over this year. I'm curious on if that's translated into the interest of Core, or what's the correlation? As half of that or a small percentage interested in the utility part and finding ways to get a yield on that Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I think they're somewhat different forces, but it's certainly helped. So the way this is my frame of mind thinking of it, there's when you think of the ETFs, I think that just solidified. Bitcoin's always been the apex asset in crypto. It has simply, I think, solidified it as the apex asset.
Mm-hmm.
And the success of those products have really done that. You can think of it as, great marketing and awareness for Bitcoin. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the flows prove that more and more people want access and ability to, and they're driving demand for Bitcoin, and that's only going to continue. Then you have this other parallel where you had, a recent upgrade to Bitcoin, which was the Taproot upgrade, which enabled things like ordinals, and that force as well, I think, just woke a lot of people up to what is possible on Bitcoin. That hey, maybe there's more that can be done with Bitcoin. In that regard, it was more the equivalent of ordinals and their version of NFTs. I think it just kind of opened up the mind share of what more can be done. So I think what you're seeing is, these new developments on Bitcoin that have attracted developers and transaction fees and have gotten excitement back into the community. And then with the ETFs on the more institutional side, more marketing awareness and driving demand for Bitcoin, the asset itself. So you kind of have this perfect storm where there's people want to do more with their Bitcoin and people want more Bitcoin, right? So it's like this perfect force for chains like Core, where you can actually put that asset to work and do more things with your Bitcoin and offer
Mm-hmm.
utility for Bitcoin, whether it's native staking or coming on chain and actually doing things with smart contracts.
Yeah. No, thank you for explaining that. And that statement rings in my head. People
And
want a yield on their Bitcoin, but they also want more Bitcoin.
yeah, I think no doubt. I mean, everyone wants to stack more Bitcoin. One exciting thing is, there's actually an ETP that launched in Europe by Valor Technologies. It's a yield-bearing Bitcoin ETP. So basically, you can buy it in a brokerage account. An ETP is just exchange traded product, so not quite an ETF, but
Mm-hmm.
somewhat similar. There's an ETN, sorry, and an ETP, and they offer a yield on Bitcoin. So imagine you have your brokerage account, you can buy this yield bearing Bitcoin product that's earning a couple percent a year, and that's actually powered under the hood by Core, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they're staking the underlying Bitcoin asset, helping secure Core chain, and in return earning Core rewards, block
Mm-hmm.
rewards for doing so, and
Mm-hmm.
passing that off in an ETP product, which is pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm. And now, with the staking of Bitcoin on Core, you mentioned, there's a small yield that you're getting. Is that in the Core token, or there's different yields that you can get? And maybe you can explain that. And if it is the Core token, how is that involved in the ecosystem?
Yeah, happy to. So Core was very thoughtful about its tokenomics. There were actually no investors or pre-mines or pre-sales of this token. Token launched like just under 2 years ago in February, well, actually January 2023. And when the mainnet launched and the core chain actually went live, that was the first time tokens were minted with blocks, right? And the community got access to the token listed on exchanges. There were no pre-mines or funny games. Um, the other thing that the core team thought about was like this really long emissions curve. So you could think of it as there's this fixed supply of 2.1 billion core tokens. There'll never be more that exist. And 40% of that's been allocated to block rewards, right? So every time a block is produced, pays out rewards. And that curve is for the next 81 years. You think of it somewhat similarly to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's obviously on a completely different schedule, but you think of it every 4 years, there's a halving event with Core. Basically, every year the emissions are going down roughly, let's say 3% until in year 81, there's no rewards yet. And the network subsists solely on fees. And so you've got this like
Hmm.
really thoughtful tokenomics and sustainable block rewards. And that is what is, those fixed block rewards are what are paying the core stakers, Bitcoin stakers, and miners, mining pools. So it's not like liquidity mining incentives, fake yield, or money coming from a treasury. These are just fixed emissions, right, that have been prepared for block rewards. And so to answer your question, I thought it was important to give the context. The rewards are paid in core, and then what folks can do is they can stake the core or they can sell it. It's kind of up to the staker themselves. We're coming out with a dual staking product where, if you
Hmm.
stake a percentage of core as well as Bitcoin, you're going to get highly boosted yields on Bitcoin. So the incentives are as such that, folks want to hold on to some core and likely stake it, which is going to be really exciting, getting a lot of great feedback on that product coming out soon. But yeah, that's overall how the emissions work and, core tokens and rewards and core is a top project at this point. I think it's, top 70 in terms of coin market cap, leading Bitcoin chain in terms of TVL usage, DAUs, active wallets, protocols. So, it's a lot more than a rewards token. It's a really healthy Bitcoin ecosystem, the leading Bitcoin scaling chain that I think is still very nascent and early in its
Hmm.
development. I think TVL is going to grow dramatically, and a lot more excitement is going to come to Bitcoin. I think it's still very early, just getting started, and we're already in a great position.
Hmm. Thank you for explaining that. And I think you mentioned the number at the beginning, around 500 million or less out of the trillion plus that Bitcoin has in market cap is sort of being staked into the utility side of Bitcoin right now. What do you think will help drive that, or some of the factors? Is it just the Bitcoin price, or even just the competitive landscape of alternative Bitcoin utility ecosystems that pop up, and then one gets popular, and then people see all the alternatives and say, "Hey, Core's here, but there's other ones. Everyone's doing this now, and more people are going to get involved." What are those some of the factors that are going to drive more Bitcoin to be staked and utilized?
So I missed the first part because the video actually
Hmm.
froze. Um, if am
Yeah.
I coming through? So it's okay, but I think I got the gist. So let me know if I'm in the right angle. So I think that, competition's good. And the way I frame this is like there's $1.5 trillion in liquidity in Bitcoin that is somewhat just sitting there. There's obviously some people doing, lending activities, et cetera, but most of it is simply sitting. So there's this huge opportunity to bring that on chain or activate this pool of capital which dwarfs Ethereum, right? And it is natively on a blockchain. So obviously a lot of folks are going to try and build scaling utility for Bitcoin and try and facilitate dApps, et cetera. So it's going to be competitive, and that's a good thing because the reward pie is so big. In terms of what's important, it's like, hey, are these projects, were they founded with long-term success in mind, or is it chasing a narrative? How are the tokenomics set up? Are they sustainable for decades to come? The beauty of Bitcoin is like truly pure fair launch. That's why people absolutely love it. And lastly, I think the battle is just around the utility itself. Are there products and opportunities and real problems being solved on the blockchain, like Core has? Like, are there money markets? Are these key use cases that that folks with Bitcoin want to use. And ultimately, it's like who can create the network and community to get there first, where folks trust it and come because it's solving a real problem of theirs. So, those are the things I think about. I think it's really competitive and it's early and it's just a very exciting time. We're, in a great position to be leading in all these metrics right now, and it feels really good.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that explanation and the context you made prior to the rewards about the core blockchain and how it sort of resonates with Bitcoin longevity, decentralization. I think people need to understand all of that when they are utilizing their Bitcoin somewhere. What am I actually getting when I lock my Bitcoin in? Am I actually fulfilling sort of the purpose of Bitcoin, staying in the true decentralized nature of it? So I
I
think
think that's important.
Yep.
To riff on your point, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I think it's an important point. I think you're that's why the design of something like a core was very thoughtful, right? It's like aligned with Bitcoin holders, aligned with
Mm-hmm.
miners. When you think of folks to be like, well, what if this activity can just happen on existing Ethereum L2 or et cetera, et cetera? It's like, well, it doesn't accrue value to Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
in any way, or it doesn't accrues value to Ethereum, right? And so these are the things, or the opportunity that stands right now to have a really Bitcoin aligned project.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
sorry, I heard some background there, but yeah, to have a Bitcoin aligned solution that hits on a lot of the factors that you were talking about.
mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that. And one other question about the staking. I feel like part of the popularity of staking in recent months has been around not just staking, but liquid staking or restaking. And platforms like Eigenlayer have brought in more attention because not only can you stake, but you can do once you're staking, you can do other things with derivative assets, maybe earn more yield. Is that, I understand there's some kind of liquid staking in Core. Is that along
Yeah,
those terms?
yeah. There's a liquid staked core, which is pretty common in most ecosystems, right? You can stake core and mint what's called ST core and then deploy it into DeFi while having a native yield. The thing that Core is really excited about is this product called LST BTC. And the thinking of this is you could almost imagine it as like the Bitcoin equivalent of an ST ETH, right? So you'll be able to get access to this dual staking that I talked about. So it'll be like Bitcoin Core. You can basically you know send in your Bitcoin or Core and then mint this LST Bitcoin token that has native yield from Core's consensus, right? So it's all being staked, but then you get this native token called LST Bitcoin that you can go use on the Core blockchain. Whether it's a money market or a DEX or exchanging, there's gonna be real things you can do with this LST Bitcoin token, all while it has native yield built in. And that is, I think, super exciting, and the opportunity is massive, and definitely a product that one of the products on Core's roadmap that folks are most excited about. I think coming out in about a month or so.
Mm-hmm. I'll definitely look into that a little bit more. I feel like once people see the basic staking of their Bitcoin, then they become interested in learning more and looking at derivative assets. But as you said at the beginning, there's still so much market cap of Bitcoin that has yet to just take the first step. And I want to go back to that as we near the end. What if somebody has $100 in Bitcoin, or maybe they have 1 million? What is the way that they get started? Do they just go to the Core platform and connect their wallet and lock it, and then just do some basic tasks? Because I feel like that's the first step in getting involved.
Yeah, so I mean, just take all your Bitcoin and stake it right now. That's the first step. Just do it. No, I'm just uh, I think so. Let's think of it as there's different folks, different yeah, different folks, different blokes or whatever the term is. So yeah, what if you're a Bitcoiner and you want to look to earn? I think the first step is let's look at non-custodial Bitcoin staking. You don't give up custody of your Bitcoin. You don't have to wrap it or bridge it, and you're directly helping secure the core blockchain. And there's about, again, I don't know if I mentioned the numbers, but about 6,000 Bitcoin staked already,
Hmm.
live for the last 5 to 6 months, very trusted, just works. And so the thinking would be go to stake.coredao.org, ensure that you're using a supported Bitcoin wallet, and stake a portion of your Bitcoin, even if it's 5%. Try it, get a sense of how it works, even 1% of your Bitcoin.
Hmm.
Time lock it for 10 days, whatever the minimum is, and see what the experience is like. And you'll realize that it's, very simple. It's a simple Bitcoin transaction, and you're directly contributing to the core network. You'll then earn some core yield. And my suggestion would be go have some fun in the core ecosystem. You've now got some core tokens on an EVM address. There's this program called Core Ignition, which is an incentive program to help and educate new users how to get involved in the ecosystem, what kind of dApps there are, how they work. And there's actually an incentive program to do things on the core blockchain. So I think that's a good way to start, whether you got $100 or, like you said, 1 million. And just start with the Bitcoin stake function, and then you'll earn some core tokens, which you can go play around in the core ecosystem with an
Hmm.
EVM wallet.
Hmm. That's great, Brendon. I appreciate all this information, and I'm wishing the core team all the best in driving further utility to Bitcoin. I feel like it's something that a lot of people are just waking up to the fact that, hey, it's already the greatest asset of all time, but it can be even greater if we can put other utility in it and utilize it with other blockchain ecosystems and decentralized applications, decentralized finance, to take finance back into your own hands. So I'm going to leave that link in the show notes to the Core DAO and the staking part of it, so people can check it out and learn more. I would love to follow up in the next quarter or two and see where Bitcoin's at and where Bitcoin staking and utility is at. I feel like it'll be growing, and we'll see what else is up the sleeve in of the Core DAO. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Very much appreciated. Thanks, Ashton. And yeah, stay tuned. We've got a great Twitter, very active Twitter, a Discord, probably see some great news coming out this quarter. So the core team is just getting started. So it's a really exciting future to be a part of.